Hey guys, it's Madison. I wanted to share my story. I've been wanting to do this for a while, just be able to kind of talk through the journey that I've been on personally with different health issues like PCOS, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life and how I ended up starting my online coaching business with Madison Cake Coaching as I reflect back on all of the things that have led me to where I'm at today. So I was always very competitive growing up, very active. I was actually homeschooled. I grew up in Bartlett, Tennessee, right outside of Memphis with my parents and my two younger brothers. We loved being homeschooled. It gave us a lot of time to be able to do after school activities, sports, music, all sorts of things like that. Growing up, I did gymnastics when I was younger, and then I ended up doing swim team for most of middle school and high school. I loved competing against myself, and I loved getting stronger and faster and better at what I was doing. Now looking back, I can see that I had some signs and symptoms of PCOS even in high school. My periods were very unpredictable. I had them pretty consistently, but just not regularly. I'm pretty sure could have been between 30 to 50 or 60 days. It was just never regular. I also remember having a really hard time falling asleep at night. A lot of nights I would just lay there for hours, and I even would have a notepad on my nightstand where I would make my to-do list for the next day because my brain just wouldn't shut down and stop thinking about things. So definitely ran a little bit anxious, I would say. I was definitely type A, definitely perfectionistic, and so I think that all contributed to the hormonal imbalances that I've had to deal with. So I would finally fall asleep and then sleep until 7 or so the next morning and just still be so tired. And then every afternoon I would have another energy crash and just feel so tired in the afternoons. I definitely also started struggling with moodiness, mood swings in high school, and I was never diagnosed with depression, and I don't want to throw that word around because I think it's definitely overused nowadays. But there were just some different seasons of very deep sadness that I remember going through in high school and just being confused and thinking back to when I was in middle school and I was just so happy and positive all the time, and people would even tell me like how positive of a person I was, and I just remember thinking like, where did that girl go? Like, what happened to me? Why am I just sad all the time? I quit swimming about halfway through high school, and I remember that was one of the seasons of just kind of deep sadness that I went through, where I just wanted to like sit in bed and watch reruns of Hannah Montana on YouTube. And now I know that a big part of that could have been because I stopped exercising so much. I had been used to swimming for 2 or 3 hours every single day, and then I went from that to not really being active. And knowing what I know now about hormones and PCOS and things, I think that just drastically affected me and my mood and how I felt. Another thing that is related to PCOS, and we don't know if it's a symptom or part of the cause or just a correlation, but a lot of women with PCOS really struggle with body insecurities, body image issues. And I remember at a very young age, when I was just starting to go through puberty and I felt really awkward in my body, like I was, misproportioned and just too large in some places. I remember I really started struggling with body image. I was probably about 10 years old, and that insecurity just kind of stuck with me throughout middle school and high school. I just never really felt comfortable in my body, never really felt pretty or attractive, and just felt this pressure and this need to try to be smaller. Like I just always felt like I was too big. And I wasn't overweight. I look back at pictures now and it kind of blows my mind. Like, oh my gosh, I remember how I felt in this picture, and like I look just very normal, and yeah, it's sad. But anyways, so then we get to the fun stuff. College. Dun dun dun. I feel like college is just such an experience for everyone, where you're figuring out who you are and you're making new friends and you're living in a new place sometimes for the first time in your life. There's all of these new stressors in your environment, and college is so fun. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. It was the time of my life. I miss it sometimes. I miss just being around your friends all the time, living in the dorm. I had a lot of really great experiences in college. The tough parts were definitely the mental health and the physical health side of things. So growing up, I also grew up as a Christian. I gave my life to Jesus when I was 6 years old, but I never put spiritual health and mental and physical health together. I never saw myself as a person that has spiritual health, mental health, and emotional health. I really didn't know anything about mental health growing up, or how to deal with my emotions. Everything was just very suppressed. Like I didn't talk about it a lot of the time. And I also just was not very educated about my physical health as a woman either. Hormones, how your cycle works, it's not really explained to you in very much detail. So as a woman, you kind of have to teach yourself all about your body in order to reverse all these health conditions and figure it out. But anyways, in college I majored in music. I was a worship leadership major at Mississippi College, and music majors and nursing majors were the top two most stressed students. This is according to one of the school counselors that I ended up going to see during my senior year of college. And it makes sense because music majors and nursing majors are just so busy all the time. So for me, I was either doing homework for classes. Hey baby, you wanna come up here? Come here, baby. Yeah, good boy. So in college, I was either practicing in the music room, or doing homework, or in class, and I didn't have a ton of time outside of school to rest. If I wanted to have a social life, I was always doing something. And so I think I went into college already more on the type A, perfectionistic, a little bit high-strung side, and doing music in college, that was all kind of a recipe for disaster. So I think it was my sophomore year of college, I broke down crying in a voice lesson with my voice teacher, and he was like, "Are you okay? You don't seem okay." Like I was super inflamed, super fatigued, and super emotional. I just broke down crying. Like I had been so exhausted my freshman and sophomore year, putting so much pressure on myself all the time to get good grades and to just do well in music and in all my classes, and still try to be involved in campus life with friends and things. My voice teacher, he asked like, what are you eating? Like, are you just eating French fries in the cafeteria? I was like, no, like I eat healthy. As far as I knew, I was eating healthy. Like I wasn't eating dessert all the time and junk food all the time. I tried to eat healthy. And I had all 8 a.m. classes, but I would still wake up at 5 a.m. almost every day to go to the gym for an hour. So I was only getting probably 6 hours of sleep at night, and then doing lots of cardio. Like I started running a lot in college So I was doing a very high stress form of exercise, and then going to high stress classes, doing a high stress major, and putting a lot of pressure on myself. So anyways, he asked me these questions that I hadn't even thought about or related to my fatigue or my emotions. Like, that was just normal to me. I just thought, like, this is just how I have to feel. I just have to be exhausted all the time and on this emotional roller coaster all the time, and just kind of not feeling comfortable, feeling awkward in my body all the time. That was just my normal. I didn't know otherwise that anything was really wrong. But that happened, and then also, I don't remember exactly when this was, but I went for 6 months without a period. I don't remember if this was during the beginning of college or maybe senior year of high school, but somewhere in there, I told my mom about it, and we went to my first OBGYN appointment just to talk to them and say, like, I haven't had a period in a while, like, is everything okay, what's going on? Had no idea what PCOS was, or didn't really know about hormones, didn't know anything about holistic health at this point. Just knew what, like, the typical American is taught as healthy. And so they did an ultrasound of my ovaries to make sure everything looked okay structurally. I think they did blood work, and they just told me, your vitamin D is really low, you just need to take vitamin D. So I started taking vitamin D. A year later, I went back because I was having the extreme fatigue, the just mood swings, irregular periods, and I started getting really bloated and almost couldn't eat anything without just feeling like I needed to lay down on the ground in a ball. So we finally went back a year later, and they looked at my old ultrasound from the year before and said, oh, you have PCOS. And now I'm like, what in the world? Like, they didn't diagnose me when they first took the ultrasound. They had to wait a year later to tell me that I had PCOS. That still baffles me. And so many women have stories like this of just it taking so long for them to finally get diagnosed. This doctor was like, oh, you have PCOS? And all she said was, don't worry about looking it up. Like, you're not overweight, so you don't worry about what Google says. All you have to do is either take birth control or progesterone or metformin. And I knew I didn't want to take birth control. I'm not really sure why. Hey, come on, baby. I'm not really sure why I had such a strong, like, I just knew I didn't want to have, like, fake hormones in my body. I think I just kind of knew that instinctively already at that point. So I didn't want to do that. I tried metformin for a month, and it made everything worse. Like, my gut issues got worse. I couldn't eat anything. I was just so bloated and uncomfortable, and just felt like I couldn't eat anything without ballooning up. And I already had the body image issues, so I just was like in a ball in the bathroom on the ground, like, what the heck is happening to me? Why is my body, like, rebelling against me, everything I do? And it made me have, like, just get really dizzy and nauseous and have low blood sugar, where I felt like I was gonna pass out all the time. So anyways, metformin was terrible for me. Was not what I needed at that point. I think I tried the progesterone for about a month as well. All I knew was that it was a hormone I was maybe low in. That made me feel the same. It didn't help at all, because it wasn't getting to the root cause of any of my symptoms. Fast forward a few months after being diagnosed in the fall of 2017, my junior year of college. January 1st, 2018, I was at a passion conference, and I was so miserable. I had tried the metformin, I had tried the progesterone. I was like, these are crap, these make me feel horrible, it's not working, like, surely there's something else I can do. And so I did all this research and looked up, like, what are women doing online who are diagnosed with PCOS? Like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something else that you can do. Right, Obi? And so I found out that all these women were going gluten and dairy free and having a ton of success with losing weight and managing their symptoms naturally. And so did a little more research into like low glycemic index foods, what that meant, what are these different macros. Like I barely knew at this point like difference between protein, carbs, and fat. Like was not a nutritionist by any means. And so just started doing all my own research, and I really actually kind of felt bad about cutting out any sort of foods because I didn't want to be seen as like high maintenance or a diva, or like I was just doing it so that I could like look a certain way. Like I didn't want people to judge me and think I was being vain or anything like that. But I went to the Passion Conference and I really felt convicted like to cut out gluten and dairy. So that day at the conference, I decided like I am so miserable, I will try anything. So that day, like they fed us lunch, which was sandwiches, and I remember they said, oh, if you're gluten-free, you can walk to this one section of the arena to get the gluten-free lunch. So I walked like all the way to the other side of the stadium by myself to like go find gluten-free lunch, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I went back to college, and one of the other things I had seen online was women doing lower intensity exercise. So I stopped running like 3+ miles a day, and I did maybe 2 miles max, 1 to 2 miles, maybe a couple times a week, and focused more on strength training and cut out gluten and dairy and a lot of other things. I kind of did an elimination diet on myself, so I started writing down everything that I was eating and how they would make me feel, and if something made me feel really crappy, I would cut it out. And so I wasn't eating really any processed or fried or sugary foods, just mainly whole foods. I think I was eating like strawberries for breakfast with my coffee because like eggs and coffee weren't going well together for me at that point. And then at the cafeteria, I would get like a sweet potato and make a salad with grilled chicken, and I would bring my own avocados to school and put like half an avocado on my salad. For a snack, I would have a Laura bar or like a can of tuna. And I remember I was like pretty hungry for snacks all the time because I wasn't used to eating like that. It was a big change, and I cut a lot of stuff out. I was very strict at first. But that, the nutrition combined with the lower intensity workouts just completely changed how I felt. Within 2 weeks, I felt like a completely new and different human. It was insane. My bloating went way down. My gut obviously needed healing, so removing all of the foods that were triggering my leaky gut and things like made me feel a ton better. And the lower intensity workouts made me a lot less inflamed as well. I believe I probably at this point also added in a couple more supplements. I was already taking vitamin D. I think I added in like probiotics, turmeric to help with inflammation, maybe omega-3s and things like that. But there's always caveat. I'm very glad that I made those changes. I'm still gluten and dairy free to this day. I've been able to add in a little bit more foods that I wouldn't have eaten before because I have a much healthier relationship with food now, and plus my body has just been able to heal a lot, so it's able to handle more things than it used to be able to. So the other fun thing that was going on during the time that I was diagnosed with PCOS, January 1st, 2018, cut out gluten and dairy. My pops suddenly passed away from a stroke. And that was the first time that I experienced a loss like that. I hadn't lost a loved one that close to me before. Also during this time of figuring out PCOS and food journaling, the elimination diet, and all of that, I started really grieving that semester of school. And then also at the time I was dating someone that I was really in love with and very serious with. And he was really helping me with figuring out my PCOS and very supportive of that. We got super close very quickly. I was an emotional wreck during this time. I remember a couple times looking back where I just didn't know how to handle my emotions. I didn't know how to express the difference between being upset versus just physically, like my hormones being off or being hungry or something like that. But through all that, he was kind of there for me and just very patient and very supportive, and we were just both very similar. So I think we understood each other pretty well. He was the first person that I ever admitted like my body image issues to. I had never admitted really to anyone before that like I just felt ugly and uncomfortable and fat and just struggled with liking my body. And that was very hard to talk about at first. Fast forward to that summer and me trying to deal with grieving the loss of my grandfather and all the PCOS stuff. In the middle of all that, I got engaged to this guy, and then we broke it off just 3 days later. I was devastated. I was devastated. It felt like someone else had died because I really could have seen at the time my life with this person and wanted to be with them, but didn't know how to tell him that, didn't know how to talk through everything that was going on internally, the emotions, the physical health side of things. It was really just a mess. And so I went into kind of a time of depression, and that was the first time I experienced suicidal thoughts that summer and fall. And my PCOS got worse because of the stress and the grief, and it was harder to control my cravings. So even though I was eating gluten and dairy free, I don't know that I was like, I would have a pint of dairy free ice cream at night or things like that. So that was one of the ways that my body was trying to cope with the grief, was like these intense cravings like at night of just needing more food and eating comfort foods. For the next couple years, through the next couple of jobs, there was a lot of stress, a lot of highs and lows and crazy emotions. But during that time, I'm so thankful that I went through the hard things that I did, because it caused me to start really focusing on myself and my mental health and what was going on with me and my perfectionism. So I started going to see counselors. I did a life coaching program, and I learned how to be able to identify triggers, how to regulate my emotions better rather than letting them drive the car, like how to acknowledge they were there, like toddlers in the back seat, but not letting the emotions drive the car and control all the decisions of my life. I learned how to be able to communicate what I was feeling and my emotions in a healthy way rather than trying to suppress them until I exploded. It was really just 2 years of figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do with my life, and just a lot of therapy, working through grief, working through like the body image issues, the body dysmorphia, all of that. And so I'm very thankful for that breakup, even though it was so hard. The way that it forced me to be like, okay, I need to work on some things and I need to get better, because I could have been a lot better of a girlfriend if I hadn't been wrapped up in my insecurities, my, not being able to communicate my needs and my emotions. I'm thankful for that. And then during that time, I was working in a couple of different churches in different capacities. I did worship, leadership internship for a year. And then after that, I got a job in Franklin, Tennessee. get emotional. It's so cool to look back and see how God doesn't give you what you think you want, because He has something so much better in store for you. Like, I was so devastated for years that I didn't end up marrying that guy and doing ministry with him. And I just beat myself up for not being good enough at the time, for not have already been to years of therapy, and not have already figured out how to heal my PCOS and my hormones. But I am so thankful because God gave me a job in Franklin, Tennessee, at this church, and that's where I met Brett, my husband. And he is very different from me, but we balance each other out so well. Brett knew nothing about PCOS or holistic health when we met, but he decided to cut out gluten with me because he had like different gut issues that he had struggled with for a long time, and going gluten-free actually ended up really helping him. It was funny because at the time his friends teased him that he was just doing it to impress me, but he's still gluten-free and it's his own choice. Brett and I obviously met. We were coworkers for a year and then friends, and then we started dating. We dated for a year and then we got engaged, had a short engagement, and then got married. While he and I dated, I was the healthiest that I'd ever been physically. I finished my personal trainer certification and started working at Gold's Gym in Bellevue. And so I was working out like 4 days a week and getting plenty of steps in, walking around, showing people how to do exercises all day, every day. I had learned more and more and more about nutrition and supplements and managing my stress for my PCOS. Even for me, cutting out like oats and beans helped my inflammation go down even more. And just learning more about proper strength training and programming helped me a ton. And I just felt very healthy and very confident during that time, and that's kind of continued to now. After we got married, we moved to Columbia, South Carolina, and somehow we both ended up working at 2 different chiropractor offices. And then after we took the jobs, we found out that the owners, our bosses, were like best friends. And so that was really cool because chiropractors are super into holistic health, at least ours were. And so he and I both learned even more about nutrition and toxins, even like making sure you're using a good water filter if your water's not clean, air filter. Like, we got rid of all of our plastic and our toxic cookware and substituted that with non-toxic cookware. And I really, when we got married, I knew when we moved into our new house that I wanted it to be a non-toxic house. So I got rid of all our cleaning supplies that were toxic, switched all of my makeup and toiletries over, got rid of candles that were toxic just completely. And that was really the last step in really helping me be healthy and reduce inflammation and just help us both feel very good and very healthy. We worked at these 2 chiropractor offices. It was great because Brett learned even more about holistic health and he got very into it with me, and so that was really neat for me to watch. Now thankfully we've gotten to move back to Franklin, Tennessee. We love it here, it's our favorite, and our families are still in Memphis, so we're a lot closer to them now. Oh, also while we were in Columbia working at the chiropractors, I decided, and Brett really helped me figure out that I wanted to do this and how to actually make it work. But because Brett is a entrepreneur himself with his photography business, and so I was very inspired by watching him work so hard on his business, and I decided that I am so passionate about fitness and health and wellness and helping people figure out how to manage their symptoms naturally if they have PCOS. And so in May last year, I kind of soft launched Madison Cake Coaching, I got 6 of my friends to let me coach them for free for 6 months. And then a few months into doing that, I started taking on paying clients. And so the last year has really been me building out the business. What softwares am I going to use? Like, how is the process going to work of onboarding clients and everything. Obviously, like, my journey with PCOS is the main reason why I wanted to get my personal trainer certification and be able to help women learn how to do all of the things that I've learned over the last 6 to 7 years about holistic health and managing your PCOS symptoms naturally, and just preventative health in general, instead of the medical model of symptoms, diagnosis, treatment through medication, and then you're just masking those symptoms until you get another new symptom, and it just keeps getting worse and worse until you're on all these medicines. So instead of that, I love the preventative side of things. Yeah, I just want to get more and more into it and learn more and more every day. A lot of what I already do with Madison Cake Coaching is holistic minded, as far as not just the workouts, but the nutrition and the daily habits like lifestyle, stress. We look at all of that. I am so thankful and blessed to get to teach other people what I have learned, and I think that God allows us to go through things so that we can help other people through that same thing. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. Thank you guys for listening if you've watched all of this, and I hope this has been relatable and encouraging. And if you did relate to this and you want to chat, please reach out to me. My Instagram is its.madison.kate. Just message me and let me know that you related to this in some way, or if you have questions about more specifics with my coaching or about holistic health or hormones or PCOS, whatever it is, I'd love to hear from you. But thanks for following along on this journey, and I'll continue to share as the story continues. Thanks, guys.